How's it hanging, Ram fans? And welcome to another week of Bird's Eye View. It's nice to see you all again. I'm Ethan Bird. Now, last week we talked about mental health and athletes and how important that conversation is. And I cannot even begin to explain how proud I am of all of you watching. We created a conversation in a beautiful space of acceptance and empathy. Thank you. Now, of course, that conversation does not end. I caught up with CSU basketball legend Nico Carvacho to talk about his own journey through mental health. Take a look.
I think what's really important is there's a stigma around being a man in sports, and you're put on this pedestal of you have to be emotionally sound. You have to be able to lead everybody else around you, and you being a leader for CSU basketball for 4 years, somebody who a lot of, especially last year, young guys looked up to. Right. How did you take mental health into account in all of that?
You know, me being a son of a dad who played professional soccer and coached in the pros, and was my coach at the time, and just my mom played college basketball, and my whole life has been around sports, and I've been blessed to have the opportunities that I've had and the parents that I have. But, there's a lot of pressure, because, you want to do well, you want to, come up to these expectations that people put on you and you put on yourself as a person. And, I struggled, even though maybe I didn't show it or, I didn't come out with something, but I definitely did struggle with, being one of those guys that, every single day have to put up these numbers and have to produce. And, I actually also had I had 2 or 3 different sports psychologists that I talked to throughout my time with CSU. FaceTime, got to see somebody in Fort Collins. So, those things really help you. They give you, somebody to talk to, somebody you can trust, somebody that's, not biased or not in not in CSU athletics or anything. Somebody that's on the outside that has totally different opinions, and, they give you different ways to help you. And that, I always found a change in my game, my performance and consistency, and every single game, every single day performances when I was talking to a sports psychologist. And
now, Nico bringing up talking to a sports psychologist is just so important. Now, I can personally attest that seeing a counselor is probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. Seeking professional help is not a sign of weakness, and talking about it really takes a lot of bravery. Just a big thank you to Nico for opening up to me, and he also talks about his big move to Bulgaria to play pro ball in the full interview that will be posted on YouTube after the show. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you may have noticed the plethora of allegations against CSU athletics over the past couple of months. I got to catch up with Coloradoan reporter Miles Bloomheart, who has been breaking all of these stories, and get his take on everything from the alleged COVID-19 cover-up, accusations of racial insensitivity, to the ongoing outside investigation. After this story was published, CSU Twitter had just, blown up, with a lot of players saying, this isn't happening. Trey McBride, one of the bigger personalities on the CSU team, he said, this is completely untrue. But at the same time, you have concerned players and staff talking to you. So how do you perceive the public perception of this piece?
I think on the COVID piece, it's a little more difficult because we went with anonymous sources. Yeah. Because obviously a lot of the staff and players were fearful of retaliation or retribution, and so they did not want to come forward. However, when you corroborate it with enough people, you know that it's happening. I think what's hard sometimes for people to understand is that you have to understand that on 120 players. Not everybody is feeling the same thing. Not everybody has seen the same thing. They experience different things. However, what I can tell you is that it was a large enough contingent of people that caused concern, and for us to go forward with the story.
Speaking of protecting the brand, it's been a bit of a problem right now for CSU Athletics with a lot of the stuff coming out. I mean, you talked to Anthony Hill and both Jimmy Stewart about the racial insensitivity and nepotism and kind of institutional problems within CSU athletics. What was it like hearing those things from two guys who have been a big part of CSU athletics community?
Yeah, I was really proud of them. To be quite honest, I had worked on the story for quite a while, and I told those people who were contacting me I was not going to do the racial insensitivity and abuse story until I had people on record.
Yeah.
Because when you can only use anonymous sources, that lessens the credibility of your story. Once I had some people that were willing to come out and put their name to it, we went with the story. You have to remember, Jimmy Stewart and Anthony Hill are on the sidelines. They are in meetings. They're in the locker room. These other people that I talked to are they're all spread out among the athletic department, and they're in all of these kinds of situations where they hear and see. So the one thing that the standard question that Kevin Lytle and I asked everybody was, what did you experience? What did you hear? What did you see? And how did you perceive that experience? That way you don't lead anybody into an answer. You just ask how they saw it and how they perceived it. And so when you get enough people, I think we had over 30 people at that point. There's a lot of people in the athletic department who are unhappy and definitely willing to talk about it.
So my hope is that this investigation is prioritizing players and their true experiences over what coaches and leadership are saying are happening.
That's the hope and the goal, but as we know, as you've seen, right, the movements from a lot of these college student athletes, because they don't have a union, because they really don't have a voice.
Yeah.
They are finding now they might have a platform. So for my stories, really, Anthony Hill and Jimmy Stewart and some of the other people that came forward was their voice. They don't feel they have a voice at CSU. Many of those people have talked to me about going to Joe and addressing these situations with nothing happening, and so that's where the frustration boiled over to then coming forward to the media. So the student athletes really don't have a voice, and they're the ones that should have the greatest voice.
And you can catch my full 20-minute interview with Miles on YouTube after the show also. But it's important to remember that when journalists like Miles and myself and the rest of our team investigate these stories, it is not because we're out to get CSU. We love this school and its athletics program. However, when members of our community are feeling unsafe and unheard, it is our job to tell their stories. And in the nature of full disclosure, I did reach out to CSU Athletics for comments, but was understandably told to refer to previous comment, as they will not be doing any interviews until the ongoing investigation has been concluded. And since this interview, I not only got a much-needed shave, but I also learned a lot about this whole situation. This is ongoing and a developing story, but we here at CTV Sports are dedicated to bringing you the truth as it comes out in the coming weeks. Now, thanks for tuning in to Bird's Eye View. Rachel and Cam have their playoff picks up after the break. See you next week, Rams. I'm Ethan Burt.